Today, folks, is a bittersweet day. Bitter because it's the last national holiday celebrating a biological molecule. I'll give you all a moment. It's quite sad. But somehow we'll make it through, because today we get to celebrate nucleic acids. And some of you may be unfamiliar with that vocabulary, nucleic acids, but many of you are probably familiar with an example of a nucleic acid. These are the substances, these are the biological molecules that make you, Make some of you really tall, and some of you really short, and some of you have fat toes, and some of you have different shaped earlobes, and make some of you be able to go like this, or like this, like eh. I know you want to try it. Go ahead. I'll give you a second. Give it a try. That's right, folks. Or even all of your physical characteristics. Not all of them, but most of your physical characteristics, like your hair color, your eye color, your skin color, whether or not you have bushy eyebrows. Right, Leanna Craig? You like eyebrows? That's right, folks. I read your personal interest surveys. Bet you thought maybe I wasn't going to, but I did. Anyways, back on track. Nucleic acids are the stuff, are the genetic information that codes for all the stuff that makes you in your body, and makes an amoeba, and makes a huge whale, or a gorilla. The DNA, the genetic information, makes every living creature have the characteristics, the physical characteristics that it has. So those are nucleic acids. So let's go ahead and get started talking about nucleic acids. So they're our last biological molecule. We're almost done talking about all the basics for biological molecules. So let's go back to our handy dandy list. We've already talked about carbs and lipids, which contain carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Then we jumped to proteins, which also included nitrogen in addition to the carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. And now we're going to talk about nucleic acids. And nucleic acids have carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and this little guy right here. That P stands for phosphorus. So in addition to carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen, nucleic acids also have phosphate. So just remember that. Cho, chon. And that's how I remember the elements that are parts of those biological molecules. So if that's helpful for you, I like to think of silly things to help me remember things. But that's my way of remembering what elements are in the biological molecules. So, happy National Nucleic Acids Day. Nucleic acids are those compounds that contain those elements that we just talked about, and their function, basically, like you guys should have written down either yesterday towards the end of the day or today at the beginning of class, the function of nucleic acids is to store and transmit genetic information. So all of that information that encodes all of the physical characteristics that you can think of in an organism, all of that information is actually contained in nucleic acids, in the genetic materials. So that's their only function, is to store and transmit genetic information. So pretty straightforward, only like one main function that they have, but it's a very, very, very important one, and it guides and directs what happens to an organism and their life. So the monomers, let's talk about the monomers of nucleic acids just for a second. I have drawn a handy dandy diagram of a monomer, which you are going to actually do in just a second, so don't forget that you guys are going to finish those visual aids, which, if you guys are visual learners, you'll notice that I do a lot of things in specific colors, because I'm actually a visual learner myself, and I think that doing things in different colors sometimes cements things in your brain, and you're actually able to recall diagrams and pictures a little bit better if you put them in color. So that's why you guys are drawing those diagrams, and that's why you're putting them in color. I hope you read that in the directions. So if you guys don't have crayons or markers or colored pencils, borrow some from a friend, or hopefully you guys broke into that blue cabinet in the back of the room and got yourself some colored pencils or something to add color to those. Okay, so back on track. The monomers of nucleic acids are things called nucleotides. So let me show you what a nucleotide looks like. This thing right here is a nucleotide, and you guys wrote that down already, so I don't need to label that. So this structure right here is a nucleotide. There are 3 basic components to a nucleotide. This main body part is a 5-carbon sugar. So you guys should have drawn glucose yesterday. This is really similar to glucose. Instead of having the 6 points, your glucose should have looked like a hexagon or an octagon. This has just 5 carbons. So the 5-carbon sugar, a little bit more basic, and that forms the main body structure of the nucleotide. So off of that 5-carbon sugar we have a phosphate. So this is where that phosphate comes in for nucleic acids. So that's the phosphate, and then this is a nitrogenous base. Now this nitrogenous base is kind of like the R group in amino acids in that this nitrogenous base kind of individualizes different various nucleotides. So nucleotides will all have the same structure over here, and they will have a nitrogenous base here, but it might be different from another one. So there are 5 different nitrogenous bases. There's adenine, thymine, cytosine, guanine, and uracil. And you guys have probably heard of those, but so we just talked about how they nucleic acids store and transmit genetic information. Well, the trick here is that this nitrogenous base right here is actually coded. They use the pattern of these nitrogenous bases to encode information. So if it's adenine, adenine, thymine, 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 cytosine, guanine, then that codes for a specific skin color. And then if it's cytosine, cytosine, guanine, guanine, adenine, thymine, cytosine, that might code for some other thing. So this nitrogenous base right here is different for various nucleotides. So there are 5 possible nucleotides because 5 different nitrogenous bases exist. So this nitrogenous base is really important because that's where the information is actually contained in DNA and RNA. So I've already mentioned DNA and RNA a couple of times. So these nucleotides hook together to form the polymers. Nucleic acid polymers are DNA or RNA. And I know that you've heard of DNA, but maybe not RNA, or you might have forgotten about RNA. So DNA and RNA are the nucleic acids. They're the polymers. So all these nucleotide monomers hook together to form DNA or RNA, which are the examples of our polymers. So let me just show you kind of how that works. So I just drew this kind of ghetto drawing. I think it's pretty good for a freehand drawing. This is how they actually hook together to form DNA. And if I were to continue all the way up, you would actually start to see that ladder form that you're a little bit more familiar with DNA. So this is how they actually hook together to form polymers. So these are the monomers, and it's not always, I just wanted to show you what this looks like because it's not always a perfect, just boring chain in a row. Monomers can hook together to form sheets. They can hook together to form branch chains. They can hook together to form a ladder structure like in DNA. It just kind of depends on what the biological molecule is. So that's how they hook together, and information is contained in here. So just to review really quickly, pretty straightforward information. Nucleic acids are compounds that contain carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and phosphorus. They store and transmit genetic information. So that function, again, not much to memorize there. They just store and transmit genetic information. The monomers are nucleotides, and the polymers, there are just 2, DNA and RNA. So, pretty straightforward. We're actually going to go into way more detail in DNA, probably more than you'll ever care to know. Just kidding, actually DNA is really exciting. It's one of my favorite units. So later on we're going to go into much more detail about the structure of DNA and how it actually encodes for proteins. But for now, that's the basic information that I need you guys to know about our final biological molecule, the nucleic acids. So we've hit up carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and now nucleic acids. So you guys are schooled up on those 4 biological molecules. Make sure you're going back and looking over your notes and reviewing them, and you're not getting them mixed up. You guys will have a quiz on these sometime next week. So I will see you guys on Monday, because I'm coming back, and hopefully you guys have a good weekend. Have a fun time tomorrow on your service project. I hope you guys get a lot of cool work done, make an impact, and have a good time bonding together. So I will see you all and meet you all next week. I hope you have a great weekend, and happy National Nucleic Acids Day. Signing out, Mrs. Quintas.